Welcome to the Ill Health Retirement Benefits LGPS presentation. My name is Richard Quinn and I'm part of the engagement team at Local Pensions Partnership Administration, and I will be guiding you through today's session. The purpose of this presentation is to provide you with an understanding of ill health retirement benefits. I will predominantly be focusing on the process of ill health and the various key points you will need to be aware of as an employer. The aim of today's session is to provide an overview of the ill health provision within the LGPS, outlining the role of the employer as the fundamental decision maker, the role of the independent registered medical practitioner, and the role of LPPA as the pensions administrator. Firstly, let's look at the key points that will be covered in today's session. I will provide you with an introduction to ill health and cover the theory behind it, including an introduction to the different tiers, and provide you some key definitions that you will come across just to familiarise yourself with these terms. I'll provide clarification on the independent registered medical practitioners, and for the funds in the north, how you can register your designated independent registered medical practitioner. I will then outline the process of ill health retirement in respect of active members, Tier 3 reviews, and also looking at how ill health is treated for deferred members. I will then touch on the costs associated with ill health retirement, and I will then give you an overview of the appeals process and to be aware of how this will be impacted from the decision process. Ill health is a very detailed area within the scheme, and this training sessions focus solely on the criteria and processes around ill health. We do have a designated ill health section on the employer's area of the LPPA pensions website for further guidance, and also to access the necessary ill health certificates you will need to complete. Suffering ill health is not something any of us plan for, but can happen. And if it does, it can affect your ability to work. The LGPS scheme has built-in ill health cover and is one of the amazing key benefits that comes from being a member of the LGPS. Ill health retirement is a way an individual to be able to access some income from their pension benefits should they become too ill to continue in their employment. Ill health is designed for people who are seriously ill or who are permanently unwell, and as long as they meet the criteria for ill health, which will be covered in the following slides, allows members to access the early payment of their pension benefits. Under ill health retirement, there are two categories that you will most likely come across: ill health for active members and ill health for deferred members. The level of benefits and protection is dependent on whether the member is still actively contributing to the pension scheme or has already left the pension scheme. If you have an active member who has become seriously ill, there are 3 tiers of benefits that may be payable depending on the seriousness of the illness and the likelihood of being able to undertake gainful employment. Tier 1 covers serious ill health, where a member is unlikely to be capable of gainful employment before their normal pension age, and would allow members to access immediate payment of their benefits based on the pension they have built up in their pension account to the date of leaving the scheme, plus an enhancement based on the assumed pensionable pay from the date of leaving up to their normal pension age, so effectively treated as if the member had stayed in the scheme. Tier 2 is unlikely to be capable of gainful employment within 3 years of leaving, but are likely to be capable of undertaking such employment before their normal pension age. The benefits are based on the pension built up in their account to the date of leaving the scheme, plus 25% of the pension they would have built up to normal pension age. Again, this is based on the assumed pensionable pay figure. Tier 3 is a scenario where the member may get better and may be able to undertake gainful employment within 3 years of leaving or before their normal pension age if earlier. The benefits are based on the pension they have already built up in their pension account to the date of leaving the scheme. There is no enhancement attached to this tier, and payment of Tier 3 benefits will be stopped after 3 years or earlier if they are in gainful employment. Deferred members, unlike retirement from active employment, there is no three-tier system in place for ill health, and there is no enhancement paid if the member draws their deferred benefits early on ill health grounds. However, the pension would not be reduced as it would be if the member chose to voluntarily draw their benefits before their normal pension age. Fundamentally, with any decision that you make around ill health retirement, what you must do as an employer is obtain the opinion from an independent registered medical practitioner. Ultimately, the decision lies with you as the employer. The decision you make as the employer, you have a huge responsibility to make a decision and to make an informed decision. I would now like to take an opportunity to just go over some of the key definitions of the terms that I will refer to as part of this presentation and that you're likely to come across as part of the process for ill health retirement. IRMP stands for Independent Registered Medical Practitioner. This is the doctor that you would work with in order to arrive at the decision about an ill health retirement for either an active member or a deferred member. An IRMP is a doctor who has a qualification in occupational medicine. It is your responsibility to obtain a suitably qualified practitioner to advise on the case and determine whether the member meets the criteria for ill health retirement and potentially the tier they fall into for active members. The ultimate decision still lies with you as an employer, and for any employer in the Lancashire or Cumbria Pension Fund, you are required to register an independent registered medical practitioner with the fund. Permanently incapable. This means the member is more than likely permanently incapable of gainful employment before their normal pension age. Gainful employment means that a member is capable of working 30 hours or more each week for a period of not less than 12 months. A deferred member, this is somebody who has stopped paying into the pension scheme and has a frozen pension that is still sitting with that relevant employer. Even though the member is no longer paying into that pension anymore, the liability of that pension still remains with that employer. And that's why you as the employer is responsible for making a decision of any application for early payment of deferred benefits on ill health. NPA. This means the normal pension age in the scheme, which at the moment is in line with the state pension age with a minimum of age 65. SPA. This is the member's individual state pension age as set by the government. The employer's role as the sole decision maker should consider the recommendation of the IRMP as well as any other evidence. The employer is responsible for the decision around if the member can take ill health retirement as well as the tier. As part of the ill health process, an independent registered medical practitioner will be required to advise on the application and also to provide their professional opinion on which tier of ill health benefits the member would fall into. Displayed on the slide for you is an outline of the criteria that the doctor must meet in order to be acceptable to fill in the medical certificate in the event of an ill health retirement. When appointing a medical practitioner, you can carry out checks against the General Medical Council. For those employers who fall under either the Cumbria or Lancashire Fund, you as an employer have a responsibility to formally register with which doctor you intend to use. Any other clients, you still have to ensure that you're using an appropriately qualified IRMP, but there is no requirement to formally register an IRMP. Regardless of which fund, it's still very good practice to have in place a suitably qualified doctor in preparation for any ill health retirements that may arise. This is also very good practice to have an IRMP already registered, as this will prevent any further delays in processing applications from one of your members for ill health retirement due to waiting to identify and register an IRMP. If you are part of the Lancashire or Cumbria Pension Fund, you are required to register an IRMP with the fund, and you must do this before the ill health retirement review takes place. Please note that you can register multiple IRMPs should you wish to do so. When you are looking at registering an IRMP, It must be a doctor who is qualified in occupational medicine or holds an equivalent qualification as outlined in the previous slide. You would then complete the LGPS Independent Practitioner form available on our website, which I'll cover in more detail in the next slide. You need to complete the LGPS Independent Practitioner form to register an IRMP, which is available on the LPPA Pensions website under the dedicated Ill Health Retirement section of the website available to employers. You just need to scroll down to the bottom of the page to download the form. I have included a link to the designated Ill Health page on our website to make it easier for you to access. You complete the form as the employer and input the doctor's details and qualifications. Once completed, please forward this onto the engagement team mailbox. We will then forward this onto the relevant pension fund, who will then approve or decline the doctor. Assuming the doctor has the relevant qualifications, we do not foresee any issue in this being approved by the pension fund. If registering multiple IRMPs, you will need to complete a form for each IRMP you wish to register. The next section of this presentation will look at the process for ill health retirement for active members to take place and come into payment. An active member is an individual who is still actively employed and is actively contributing to the pension scheme. However, please bear in mind that due to the nature of the illness, the member may currently be on a period of sickness and not actually be paying contributions due to being on nil pay. But if they are active members of the scheme, they could still qualify for ill health retirement. The first thing you need to take into account before considering whether an active member qualifies for ill health retirement is to ensure that they have met what we call a vesting period. The vesting period is the minimum requirement the member has to complete in order to have a guaranteed benefit in the scheme. There are a number of ways members can automatically meet the vesting period. They have achieved 2 years calendar length service in the scheme. They hold another deferred record. This means they would automatically have met the vesting period as they have already done so by holding a deferred record. If you are unsure if the member in question has met the vesting period, then please do get in touch with LPPA and we can review our records to check if there is any additional service or reason that may mean the member has met the vesting period. Once you have established whether the member has met the vesting period, you can now start asking the relevant questions to ascertain whether the member is a candidate for ill health retirement. The request may come direct from the member who wishes to be considered for ill health retirement. Generally, any potential cases would be highlighted as part of your internal absence management process, where a member of staff has been on sickness for a long period of time, or you are aware they have a condition or illness that they are not going to get better. Then it's part of your responsibility to consider the employee for ill health retirement. The first thing you would need to do to make an informed decision about ill health retirement is that the member will need to be reviewed by your independent registered medical practitioner. The doctor will review the individual against the criteria outlined in the relevant medical certificate. Please note that there are different medical certificates depending on whether the member is active or deferred, and also when they left the scheme. In addition, it will outline the criteria of the individual tiers. The IRMP will review this and can also take into consideration any further information such as medical reports to assist them in forming a decision. The IRMP will complete and return the certificate to you, making their recommendation. You, as the employer, will then make a decision based on the information provided to decide how you will proceed. If, for any reason, you make a decision that differs to the IRMP recommendation, you will need to be able to provide a rationale for doing so. For example, if the IRMP advises there would be a Tier 1 and you decide to go with a Tier 2, the member could potentially appeal that decision, and you would need to be able to provide evidence to support that you have made an informed decision, as the member is likely to appeal this decision. If the member has had reduced hours, the employer must ask the IRMP to certify whether the member was working reduced hours, wholly or partly, as a result of the condition that caused or contributed to the ill health retirement. If this is certified, then the reduction in pensionable pay is ignored for calculating assumed pensionable pay. The process is the same as a normal retirement process. The only difference being is that you would include a copy of the completed medical certificate with the intention to retire form or leaver form. In order to qualify for ill health retirement, the member will need to meet the criteria as outlined on the slide. A member was an active member immediately prior to the termination of their employment. A member has met the scheme's 2-year vesting period. The employment has been terminated by the employer on the grounds of ill health, of infirmity of mind or body. Termination takes place before the normal pension age in the scheme. The member is permanently incapable of discharging efficiently their duties of the current employment. The member is not able to immediately capable of undertaking gainful employment. This is the 30 hours per week for a period of 12 months. If the member satisfies all the above criteria, then they are eligible for retirement on the grounds of ill health. What will dictate the tier of ill health to be awarded to the member is based around how long it is likely for the member to be well enough to undertake gainful employment. The ill health pension becomes payable from the day immediately after the date in which the employment ends. It is the employer's responsibility to determine whether the above conditions are met. However, before they do so, they must have obtained a certificate from an IRMP. Now, what I would like to do is just provide an explanation of the different tiers that can be awarded as part of ill health for active members. As advised in the previous slides, the tiers that may be awarded are associated with the severity of the illness and the length of time of the likelihood of being capable of undertaking gainful employment. If we look at Tier 1, this is associated with serious or permanent ill health conditions, which will mean the member is permanently incapable of discharging efficiently the duties of the current employment, and is likely to be permanently incapable of fulfilling gainful employment before their state pension age. If the member meets the criteria of Tier 1, then the member is entitled to the following benefits: immediate payment of unreduced pension benefits built up to the date of termination. This also includes an enhanced pension based on the benefits they would have accrued had they worked to their normal state pension age. The enhancement is based on the assumed pensionable pay figure and the service they would have accrued for the period the day after date of terminating up to their state pension age. This enhancement is again unreduced. You will need to provide assumed pensionable pay figures even if the member has not been on reduced or nil pay immediately prior to termination. APP forms part of the calculation of the benefits, and that is the reason we require it. We do please ask to ensure this information is provided on the necessary intention to retire or leaver forms to prevent any further delay. The pension is payable for life and is non-reviewable unless this falls under the re-employment policy of the relevant fund. The next tier that can potentially be awarded to a member is Tier 2. Tier 2 ill health retirement is where it is determined that the member is unlikely to be capable of gainful employment for at least 3 years from the date of termination, but possibly be capable at some point before their state pension age. The benefits awarded to a Tier 2 ill health retirement is immediate payment of unreduced pension benefits accrued up to the date of termination. In addition, an enhancement of 25% is awarded of the pension benefits they would have accrued had they carried on working to their normal state pension age. This enhancement is based on the assumed pensionable pay figure and the service they would have accrued for the period the day after date of terminating up to their state pension age. The enhancement again is unreduced. Again, it's payable for life and is non-reviewable unless this is under the re-employment policy of the relevant fund. The final tier of the ill health benefits potentially awarded to a member is Tier 3. The Tier 3 benefits are payable if it is determined that a member is likely to be capable of gainful employment within 3 years of date of termination, or, if earlier, before their state pension age. The benefits payable under Tier 3 is the immediate payment of unreduced pension benefits accrued up to the date of termination. There is no enhancement applied to Tier 3 benefits. It is payable for a maximum of 3 years. A Tier 3 award is reviewable, and I will cover the Tier 3 review process in the next slide. As advised in the previous slides, a Tier 3 ill health retirement award is reviewable. This is due to the fact it's deemed that the member is likely to undertake gainful employment within 3 years of the date of termination. As part of the process, we will contact you around 3 months prior to the 18-month review date. We will contact you to arrange for the pension to be reviewed. At the review point, we would expect the case to be reviewed again by an IRMP. This can be the same IRMP as the original assessment. They would review them in line with the criteria and advise of the outcome of the Tier 3 review. There are 3 potential outcomes as part of a Tier 3 review. Outcome number 1 is continuation. The review has advised that there has been no changes in the circumstances, so there's been no improvement or deterioration in the condition. It is payable for a maximum of 3 years and can be reviewed again before the end of the 3-year period. Outcome number 2 is suspended. If the IRMP has determined the member is capable of gainful employment, then the payment of the pension is suspended. If this is the case, you do not have to reinstate the employment. The member's pension is just then deferred until they reach pensionable age, which is 55 onwards. Another reason that the pension can be suspended is that the member has commenced gainful employment. This would mean that the member no longer meets the ill health criteria and that the payment of pension is suspended and deferred until the member reaches pensionable age, again 55 onwards. Tier 3 payments cannot, in any event, continue beyond the 3 years. Regulation 35(7) advises this and must cease if the member undertakes gainful employment or fails to answer any reasonable inquiries made by the scheme employer or the administrating authority where appropriate about employment. The third outcome is it could be uplifted to a Tier 2. The IRMP has advised that in their opinion, the member's condition has worsened and in their opinion should be uplifted to a Tier 2 awarded benefits. The benefits would need recalculating, taking into account the Tier 2 enhancement. The pension would then be payable for life. It's important to know it can be the same IRMP that originally assessed the member, and if the member obtains employment, they have a duty to inform the employer, LPPA, so that the employer can determine whether the employment is gainful and therefore if the Tier 3 pension should be suspended. It is important to note that a member can instigate a member-initiated review. The next slide is designed to consolidate your role in the process of an ill health retirement. Hopefully, it has become quite clear that the employer plays such a pivotal role in ill health retirements and your fundamental responsibility. Let's consider the key points of the role of the employer. You must consider ill health retirement as part of your absence management policy. You must arrange for the individual to be reviewed by an independent registered medical practitioner and consider the recommendations. As part of your decision making, you also need to consider all information pertinent to the case, so if any medical reports, supporting documents or relevant information has been provided, and this will assist you in making an informed decision. You are the decision maker, whether the scheme member is granted ill health retirement and under what tier. You are responsible for communicating this along with your reason to the member. Any decision you have arrived at so that's if you're approving or declining their application for ill health retirement. This will be especially important if, after review of all the information, you are declining their application. You will need to communicate any decision to the member along with your reasons, as this can inevitably lead to appealing the decision. It is good practice to include any information regarding the appeals process. It's worth mentioning at this point that ill health retirement is one of the most commonly appealed areas in the LGPS and where members challenge decisions. It's therefore important to ensure employers and administrators are following the process to ensure that the members are entitled to the correct benefits, but secondly, that it's in the guidance of the regulations so this doesn't open up for the decision to be challenged. Finally, you would need to notify LPPA of the decision made, as this will enable us to correctly and accurately calculate the members' benefits and ensure that we have all the information to hand to process the members' benefits. The IRMP role is to review the member in line with the criteria outlined in the medical certificate. I have provided a link on the slide that will take you to the designated ill health retirement page on the LPPA Pensions website. There are a number of medical certificates available depending on the status of the member and when they left. The certificates are clearly entitled, but if you do have any questions, please do contact the engagement team for further guidance. The IRMP provides confirmation of their opinion as to whether the member satisfies the criteria for ill health retirement, and this is why it's so important to ensure that you are using a suitably qualified independent registered medical practitioner. In addition, the IRMP would also provide confirmation of their opinion how likely it is to be before the member will be able to return to work, and as a result, indicate which tier of ill health retirement the member would be categorised under. If an individual has reduced their hours in the last 2 to 3 months of their employment, if the IRMP certifies that this is linked to the ill health condition and their hours have been reduced as a result of the cause of their ill health, the reduction of hours would be ignored in calculating the enhancements applied to the benefits awarded. This is the case with Tier 1 or Tier 2 benefits, which is based on the assumed pensionable pay. The scheme protects this reduction for the calculating of APP figure if it's confirmed the reduction was caused by the illness by the IRMP. I will cover this in the next slide in more detail. Where an IRMP confirms the reduction in hours has occurred for the same reason as the ill health retirement, then the protection afforded under the scheme regulation will apply. The pension accrued for the period they have been on reduced hours will remain based on the reduced hours. The reduction in their pay will be ignored for the purposes of calculating APP. This decision solely lies with the IRMP. The employer must follow the recommendations made. The role of LPPA as the pensions administrator is to basically calculate the benefits based on the instruction received from the employer. As part of that process, this may involve flagging any inconsistencies in comparison with what information is held on our records. This is just a cursory check to make sure the correct and accurate pension benefits are being paid. This also allows a last check to make sure there hasn't been any errors in the information that has previously been advised to us. For Tier 3 ill health benefits, LPPA will contact you as the employer to drive the review. So we will contact you to prompt you to rearrange the 18-month review. We will then work with you to decide whether the benefits are to continue in payment, be uplifted, or suspended. Now what I would like to do is to cover what information we would require from you as the employer for each stage of the process. This process is pretty much similar to the process for normal retirements. The first step in the process is to calculate the member's retirement options. This is where we will require an intention to retire form for the northern clients or a leaver form for the south clients. That gives us all the information such as final pay, care pay, and APP figures we would need to produce a retirement pack for the member. The retirement pack gives the member an idea of the annual pension and lump sum they can expect. This will also include the calculation of the enhancement, if any, attached to the ill health retirement benefits. This then allows the member to review the information and decide the level of pension benefits and lump sum they wish to take on actual retirement. In order for us to process the payment of the retirement benefits, we would require a final leaver form for Lancs and Cumbria employers, along with the relevant ill health certificate. From the member, we would require completion and return of the personal details forms, any additional member forms, and relevant member certificates. The important thing to note for ill health retirements, we require confirmation of APP in an ill health case, as this is what is used to calculate the enhancements under Tier 1 and Tier 2. This can be a bit confusing, as APP is associated with absences where the member has received reduced or nil pay. If the member hasn't had any reductions in pay, then this information isn't always provided, as you may feel it doesn't apply as a result. However, as advised, it's used in the calculation of the enhancements and needs to be provided even if there are no reductions. The theory is the same. You would just look at the last full 3 months before the month of termination and provide the information based on those 3 months. Please be advised, we do offer further training on assumed pensionable pay under separate training session, and if you feel you need further training, please contact the engagement team to check when the next sessions are available. In the case of a Tier 3, we would still require this information in case this is uplifted to a Tier 2 in the future. The next section of this presentation will focus on the process of ill health retirements for deferred members. As advised, a deferred member is someone who is no longer contributing to the pension scheme and holds a frozen benefit. Although they are no longer in the scheme, the decision regarding ill health benefits still lies with you as the employer. The only difference between active members and deferred members is that deferred members are usually the one that initiates the application for ill health retirement, and you wouldn't be required to submit a leaver form, as this person would have already left the scheme. They would normally contact us as the administrator of the scheme. The process is relatively the same, as it's still your responsibility to make a decision. There are just different forms that you would need completing depending on when they left. When a member leaves the scheme and has met the 2-year vesting period, they will become entitled to a deferred pension entitlement. This effectively means that they hold a frozen benefit. When they leave, we will write to the member advising that they now hold a deferred benefit and advise that they have the option to transfer. They can access their benefits when old enough from age 55 onwards, or they can elect to defer payment to a later date, anywhere up to age 75. One option they do have after leaving is to apply for payment on the ground of ill health. What we have found with deferred members is that the process can take a long period of time to reach a decision, as the member is no longer in your employment, and there may be some confusion as to why you're being asked to make a decision because the individual is no longer working for the employer, or an employer thinks that they left the decision. As they left, the decision is no longer their responsibility. The reason for this is that although the member is no longer a responsibility of you as the employer, the liability for the pension benefits in this scheme is still classed as a liability under your fund. In order to make the process as easy for yourselves as well as the member, it's best to treat the application in the same way you would for an active member. As we are dealing with deferred members, the criteria for early release of the deferred benefits and the dates in which the benefits are payable from fall under the scheme at the time the member left. There are specific medical certificates you can download based on the date the member left the scheme on the designated ill health page of the website. The benefits payable for ill health retirement of a deferred member are paid unreduced. There is no tier system applied to the pension benefits, and the deferred benefits payable on ill health grounds are non-reviewable. If LPPA receive an application from a member to access their benefits early on the grounds of ill health, we will write to you to ask for you to consider the application. The process is no different to that of a normal ill health retirement for active members. As the employer, you would still need to arrange for the member to be reviewed by your suitably qualified or registered IRMP. The only difference is that there are specific criteria depending on when they're left, and you will need to make sure you have downloaded the relevant medical certificate based on the date of leaving. Again, as the former employer, the responsibility is still for you to make a decision which should be arrived at based on the recommendations of the medical practitioner outlined in the medical certificate. You are responsible for communicating any decision, whether you are approving or declining the application, and also outlining the rationale behind your decision. You would need to notify the member and LPPA of your decision. If you are approving that application, you will need to ensure that the completed medical certificate is forwarded onto LPPA to enable us to process payment of the benefits. I am now going to give a brief overview of the cost associated to ill health retirements. As a result of paying ill health retirement benefits, we are potentially paying benefits earlier than anticipated and increased benefits as a result of the enhancement awarded under ill health retirement. Pension strain costs occur when there is a clear shortfall in the assumed level of funding needed to provide a particular pension benefit. Often, strain costs occur when a member draws their benefits earlier than expected. In most cases, you won't receive an invoice for the cost to be paid as an upfront lump sum. Instead, it's absorbed within the ongoing employer's contribution rates as part of the triennial actuarial valuation. Every 3 years, the actuary will value the pension fund and your employer contribution rate will change. Ill health retirement is one of those factors that will change your employer contribution rate. Whilst we can say there isn't a cost associated with ill health retirement, we are paying out more benefits that the member has paid for in most cases, but the majority won't pay up an upfront cost. Some employers do have an arrangement where they will pay a proportion of the cost up front. Cumbria County Council is one of those employers who pay 60% of the cost up front. I must stress this is a minority. The majority of employers will be picked up as part of the valuation exercise. Regardless of whether there is a cost, the important thing to note is that the cost of ill health retirement should not be something you're considering as part of the decision-making process. It should be based on the assessment criteria and recommendations of the IRMP. What I would like to cover now is just touch on some of the restrictions that do apply to ill health retirements. This has been included for your reference. There are restrictions on the benefits a member may receive on ill health retirement if they have previously retired from the LGPS due to ill health, irrespective of whether the retirement occurred pre or post 1st of April 2014. In a nutshell, if somebody has already taken an ill health retirement from the LGPS, they shouldn't really be able to take another ill health retirement. For example, if someone has already received an ill health pension, they then make a miraculous recovery and re-employed, and then faced with ill health again, there are restrictions around an individual taking a second ill health pension from the scheme. This particular scenario shouldn't pop up too often, but it is something to be aware of. As mentioned previously in this presentation, ill health retirements is one of the common processes that are appealed by scheme members. This is generally as a result of the member not being happy with the outcome for the ill health retirement, which can lead to members challenging the decision that is being made about their pension. Stage 1 appeals will go back to you as the employer for you to review the decision you have made. It is for this reason that you need to ensure that you have followed the process appropriately, asked all the relevant questions, followed the scheme regulations guidance, and used an appropriate doctor to review the case. Obviously, it is your decision. You have followed the relevant process. You may end up changing your decision or upholding your decision. Stage 2. If the member is still unhappy with the decision, they have the right to appeal it to the administrating authority. So if you are in the Lancashire County Pension Fund as an employer, e.g. Wyre Borough Council employer, would go to the pension fund to look at everything objectively, review the information, ensuring that you have followed the process and that you have done everything you should have done to arrive at a reasonable decision. It's important that the decisions made by an employer are justified, otherwise they are open to be challenged by the member. Finally, the member can refer this to the pensions ombudsman, who look at the process objectively and their decision is final. It would again mean looking at whether you have followed the process and used an appropriate doctor. When processing an ill health retirement, by having the questions displayed on the slide in mind in the very first instance, this should really avoid any decisions going to appeals. This is going to create more work for the employer, distressing for the individual, and if we can get it right at the beginning, this provides a better service for the member. So if we look at some of the questions you can consider, has the process been followed? Are the decisions made justified? Has sufficient evidence been considered to arrive at the decision? If we look at the following scenario as an example, if the IRMP has recommended the member falls into a Tier 1 category of ill health, but you then decide that you think the member should be awarded a benefit on Tier 3, there needs to be justifiable reason, supporting evidence as to why your decision differs from the independent registered medical practitioner. If you were basing your decision on the costs, then this is not a justifiable reason and would open for the decision to be challenged. I just want to make you aware of some of the other points to consider when dealing with an ill health retirement. There is a lot of information to consider as part of ill health retirement. You can find more information on our designated ill health retirement page on the LPPA pensions website. There is a guide on there that we have produced for employers along with statutory guidance for you to access. LPPA can provide you with pensions estimates for ill health retirement benefits. This gives you an idea of how much the individual's pension would be worth on a Tier 1, 2 or Tier 3 basis. Members can look at their own ill health estimates on My Pension Online. This would automatically look on a Tier 2 basis. You will always need to provide assumed pensionable pay when someone takes ill health retirement, even if the member has not gone on to reduced pay, as APP is what is used to calculate the enhancements. Even when a Tier 3 pension has been awarded, LPPA will need the APP in case the Tier 3 is uplifted in the future following a review. If the member has had reduced hours, the employer must ask the IRMP to certify whether the member was working reduced hours, wholly or partly, as a result of the condition that caused or contributed to the ill health retirement. If this is certified, then the reduction in pensionable pay is ignored for calculating APP. The employer and IRMP must have regard to statutory guidance, and this can be found in the employer's area of the website. If you are unsure of what to do with an ill health retirement, please do drop us an email on the engagement mailbox. We can provide guidance, answer any questions, point you in the right direction to information, or can arrange a 20-minute team call to provide further guidance. This will help make the process smoother and avoid any delays for bringing the benefits into payment. We have now reached the end of the presentation. As I've mentioned, you will find lots more information is available on our website at www.lppapensions.co.uk. Should you have any questions, please do contact us on the contact form available at lppapensions.co.uk/contact-LPPA, and a member of the team will get back to you. This brings us to the end of the slides, which I hope you have all found useful and has given you more confidence when dealing with ill health retirements. Thank you very much.